Hello, and welcome to the Accountability Indicator Training for Graduation Rate. My name is Devin Avery, and I'm a program consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Kentucky's accountability system is comprised of 6 indicators. These indicators are state assessment results in reading and mathematics, state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing, English learner progress, post-secondary readiness, quality of school climate and safety, and graduation rate. In this session, we are going to focus on the graduation rate indicator. The Office of Assessment and Accountability developed this glossary of terms to assist educators when referencing and discussing the accountability system. In this training, you will receive an overview of the status component of the graduation rate indicator, including accountability weights and calculations. Then we will discuss information about the change component, including change score calculations, indicator performance ratings, and overall score. First, we will discuss status. Status is defined as current year performance on the metrics used for that indicator. The metric that determines graduation rate is the average 4 and 5-year graduation rates. Later in this training, I will demonstrate how to configure the status for the graduation rate indicator. A few key points to begin the discussion about graduation rate. Graduation rate measures the percentage of students who enter high school and receive a diploma based on their adjusted cohort in 4 or 5 years. Federal regulations state that alternate diploma students and students who do not graduate both count against your graduation rate, and that goes for both 4 and 5-year graduation rates. Schools below 80% on the 4-year graduation rate will be identified as comprehensive support and improvement schools and will be tagged for CSI2 per federal regulations. A 4-year adjusted cohort is the number of students who graduate in 4 years with a regular high school diploma divided by the number of students who entered high school 4 years earlier, adjusting for transfers in and out, emigres, and deceased students. A 5-year adjusted cohort graduation rate is the number of students who graduate in 5 years with a regular high school diploma, divided by the number of students who entered high school 4 years earlier, adjusting once again for transfers in and out, immigrants, and deceased students. The 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate calculation formula is the number of cohort members who earn a regular high school diploma by the end of the current school year, divided by the number of first-time ninth graders in the fall 3 years earlier who started that cohort, plus students who transferred in, minus students who transferred out, emigrate, or have passed away during those last 4 years. The 5-year adjusted cohort graduation rate is calculated in the same way. The only change is you would be dividing by the number of students from 4 years earlier. A graduation code, also referred to as a G code, has a couple of different entry dates. Regular graduates must have a completed graduation tab and a G code entered in Infinite Campus by June 30th. Early graduates are reported with their cohort. Summer graduates must have a completed graduation tab and G code entered in Infinite Campus by July 31st. Graduation rate data will be pulled from Infinite Campus and used to determine the 4 and 5-year cohort data. Now we will talk about the removal from the cohort because that does happen from time to time. If the last enrollment status for a student is any of these, the W-20, which is withdrawal to homeschool, W-21, which is withdrawal to private school, W-29, which is withdrawal out of state, W-7, which is a withdrawal due to medical reasons, or W-8, which is the student is deceased, the student is then removed from both the top and bottom parts of the adjusted cohort graduation rate formula. This student does not count positively or negatively for the school. Now we will talk about how all of this fits into accountability. Basically, it's based on the last primary enrollment in both regular or district-operated virtual or remote learning options. Accountability begins immediately upon enrollment, so there is no 100-day rule with cohort. If a student is enrolled in a district-operated virtual learning option, their last primary enrollment will code to the district providing the program. Kentucky Educational Collaborative for State Agency Children's Students will be accountable to the state if their license was valid during their last primary enrollment. The graduation rate for the 4-year and 5-year adjusted cohort will be averaged for the graduation rate indicator. Public reporting will apply these rules to district and state reporting. If you are a high school, the graduation rate is 6% of your overall score. Please note that schools with less than 80% graduation rate for Title I or non-Title I high schools, based on the 4-year cohort, will be classified as CSI 2 in years of identification per federal guidelines. Here is an example of how we find the status score for graduation rate. It is the 4-year adjusted cohort plus the 5-year adjusted cohort divided by 2. This number is then rounded to 1 decimal place. There are 5 status levels ranging from very low to very high for the current year. Color ratings include 5 performance levels from highest to lowest. Performance of schools will be reported by levels: elementary, middle, and high as applicable. The color ratings for each indicator communicate performance of schools, with red being the lowest and blue being the highest. These are the status cut scores for high school. You will notice that the graduation rate indicator appears in this table. These cuts were established in 2023 through a standard setting process and have not changed. Now, let's discuss change. The change score is calculated by subtracting the prior year's status score from the current year's status score. It's a simple formula. Current year status score minus prior year status score equals the change score. Although this is a basic calculation, it's critical because we use the same process to measure change for every indicator. Something important to keep in mind: prior year scores are only used to calculate change. They do not influence the indicator's performance rating directly. The main purpose of the prior year scores is to serve as a benchmark, to help us understand how much progress has been made from one year to the next. There are 5 change levels ranging from declined significantly to increased significantly. These are the change cut score ranges for high school. The graduation rate indicator appears at the bottom of this table. Like the cuts for status, the change cut scores were established in 2023 through a standard setting process and have not changed. Here's an example of how we find the change score. In this example for graduation rate, a high school has a current year status score of 98. We subtract the prior year status score of 97, which gives us the change score of 1. Looking at the table on the previous slide, this score would fall in the increased range for the graduation rate indicator. Indicator scores are a simple combination of status scores and change scores. They are calculated the same way for every indicator. It is the current year status score plus the change score, which yields the indicator score. The indicator scores are used to calculate overall scores. They do not influence the indicator performance ratings. Now I'm going to use the previous example scores to show how we calculate the indicator score. Current year status score of 98 plus our change score of 1 equals our graduation rate indicator score of 99. This table demonstrates how status and change are combined to get your indicator performance rating. On the left side is your status in the current year with levels of very low to very high. Across the top of the table is change, with levels of decline significantly to increase significantly. Indicator performance rating is determined by where status and change meet on the table. This table shows the overall accountability weights set by the Kentucky Board of Education. Once indicator scores have been determined, this table will help us in determining overall score. If any indicator is not available, weights will be redistributed proportionally to the remaining indicators. Overall scores represent the combined outcomes across all applicable indicators with appropriate weights applied. To calculate, multiply each indicator score by the appropriate weight found on the previous slide. After determining the weight scores, add all of them together to figure your overall score. The overall performance rating combines performance on the state indicators for elementary, middle, and high schools. These ratings will be communicated using a color rating system where blue represents the highest rating and red represents the lowest rating. The five performance levels from highest to lowest are blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. Indicator performance ratings are also reported as colors, the result of unique combinations of status and change levels, not based on cut scores. These are the overall performance rating cut scores. These cuts were established in 2023 through a standard setting process and have not changed. On this slide, you will see some resources that are available specific to cohort and SDRR. Please review the other state accountability trainings for more information about each indicator. This concludes the graduation rate indicator training. If you have any questions, please contact the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support at 502-564-4394 or email dacinfo@education.ky.gov.